of our work really is about focusing on patient centricity. So actually we decided to take matters into our own hands. And there'd been previous studies in the disease, alkaptonuria, and they'd never produced an effective working treatment. So actually we decided to take it into our own hands. We got funding from the European Commission, we formed partnerships with a CRO and with a pharmaceutical company and launched our own clinical trials. And from the start, patient centricity was going to be key. So even before the trials had started, we worked with the patients to make sure that the design was going to be suitable. We looked at outcomes especially, so we included patient-reported outcomes such as pain monitoring and other outcomes. And I think that means that we've ended up with a trial that is very patient-centric. As the patient group, we're a leading partner, we sit in the management team. And so that means that at all stages throughout the design and through the running and through hopefully the analysis of the study in a couple of years' time, patient centricity will be key. So for us, I think that's key. And it also means that the trial runs very smoothly. So for instance, in our study, we lead on patient recruitment and patient retention, and that's gone incredibly well. So the patient recruitment lasted about 9 months and recruited essentially 50% of our patient population, which is incredible, really. That's very high numbers that we managed to recruit because we know the patients, because we're a patient group, we know the patients very well. And luckily, the patient retention has also been going very successfully too. Of the nearly 200 patients we recruited, we've lost about 5. And all of those are due to unavoidable things such as pregnancy or surgery unrelated to the study. So I think the example basically shows that having a patient group involved and having patient centricity at its heart is very successful and seems to work in our case. So one of the big problems that we faced was the fact that we recruited patients across the whole of Europe. And so that meant that there was a variety of different languages. And I think definitely that's somewhere where technology is going to play a much bigger role in the future of clinical trials. I think that there's going to be better ways to actually handle that language barrier. So for instance, in our studies, we had some very simple solutions. We used a platform called Rare Connect. It's actually an initiative of Eurodis, which is Rare Diseases Europe. They have a platform called Rare Connect, and that allows human translations for many European languages. So it meant that we could talk to patients speaking French, German, Italian, whatever. And it meant that we could actually have a very good conversation with them in their native language that they could follow completely. But I think that's a great first step. But I think that's definitely going to be a very key area in the future to help just improve recruitment and retention really in clinical trials. I think one of the big challenges is that pharmaceutical companies are generally quite cautious about working with patient groups and patients in general. For us, we didn't have that problem because we led the clinical research ourselves, but I think generally that is still quite a big issue. And it's kind of a shame because I think there's definitely good examples of patient groups and pharma working together more closely, but I think there needs to be more. I think it's going to be a slow burn that generally there'll be more and more examples of it happening until it becomes commonplace. But I definitely see the future of our clinical trials being that patient groups and patients work collaboratively with pharmaceutical companies to actually have better clinical trials. I think other changes are going to come with the way that we review medicine. So the disease I represent is a rare disease called alkaptonuria. And one of the big problems that rare diseases face is that a lot of the medications patients take are off-label. So that means a drug that's been licensed for another disease and being used for a secondary disease that it's not licensed in. And one of the big problems with rare diseases is that off-label medication is obviously great for patients to access a drug that they couldn't otherwise access. But the problem is that that access isn't reliable. So what that means is that there's a big disparity of access. So some patients get it very easily, other patients can't. So I think one of the big changes we're going to see in clinical trials is a much bigger reliance on real-world data. So that's instead of doing a phase 3 or a phase 4, that's really using the real-world data of patients using off-label medications, particularly in the rare diseases where there may only be tens or hundreds of patients in the world. It's not really practical to do a full phase 3 study on those patients. So I think there's going to be a much greater reliance on real-world data and things like off-label use to actually license new drugs in the future.